we learned of one more death attributed to COVID-19 in the past day. Currently, KDHE is reporting 9 deaths statewide, 428 positive cases throughout Kansas, and 39 counties have now reported at least 1 positive case. On the equipment side, we continue to constantly monitor supplies and are working to secure more through the feds and other channels. It's right that we are working hard on the medical challenges this virus presents, but we also must work on the economic fallout created by this disease. I don't need to tell you what you already know. We have seen a significant increase in unemployment claims over the last 2 weeks as a direct result of the economic slowdown. The Kansas Department of Labor is currently experiencing an unprecedented influx of calls from Kansas workers who need to file for unemployment benefits. To give you some idea of the scope of the challenge, we went from an average of 1,800 unemployment claims per week at the beginning of the month to over 60,000 as of Sunday. Additionally, the Department of Labor is receiving over 230,000 calls every day. To put it in perspective, that is like every resident of Topeka, Lawrence, and Emporia calling every day. And just yesterday, they received over 877,000 calls. This isn't just a spike in the numbers, it is unprecedented. In response, we've doubled our capacity at our call centers. Employees are working extended hours, and we're working to add additional phone lines. We are also in the process of moving employees from other agencies to help in this effort. When I said that we are taking an all-hands-on-deck approach, I meant it. If you are seeking unemployment benefits, the quickest way for you to get them is to file online at getkansasbenefits.gov. Again, that's getkansasbenefits.gov. If you do call the unemployment hotline, do not hang up. With historic call volumes of this magnitude, please be patient. We're doing everything we can to surge the resources to the Department of Labor and provide additional capacity, but it's going to take some time. Taking applications is just the first step. We also need to ensure that every roadblock is removed so we make things as seamless as possible for our businesses and those seeking unemployment benefits. This really is no time for bureaucratic red tape. Therefore, today I'm issuing Executive Order 20-17. The order will allow Kansans to draw down new federal resources for unemployment insurance programs. The federal stimulus package passed by Congress last week will make more Kansans eligible for unemployment benefits, even gig workers and small business owners who did not previously qualify. Additionally, all Kansans eligible for unemployment will receive $600 more in benefits per week, more than doubling the total amount of benefits a Kansan would have received under state law alone. However, certain segments of Kansas employment security law will impede Kansas's ability to draw down these federal funds. In order to get these funds to Kansas to help provide unemployment benefits to recently unemployed Kansas workers, we must temporarily waive certain provisions of state statute that diverge from the federal requirements. Under this measure, the waiting week requirement for unemployment benefits is temporarily waived for all claimants. Second, the requirement that Kansans receive unemployment benefits, that Kansans receiving unemployment benefits actively seek work each week is also temporarily waived for all claimants to allow Kansans to continue the necessary social distancing practices. Finally, all Kansas employers, as required by the Federal Department of Labor, must notify separated employees if they qualify for unemployment insurance. All states have their own requirements within their employment security laws. Every state must comply with the measures I just outlined in order to qualify for the new federal resources. This flexibility will ensure Kansas workers and small business owners can secure the safety and protection that unemployment insurance is designed to provide at times like this. While we want to ensure that all Kansans receive the help they need at this uncertain moment, I also want to take a quick word about the actual process of applying for state benefits. Again, I want to encourage all Kansans with internet access to file online at getkansasbenefits.gov. As the Kansas Department of Labor copes with an unprecedented influx of new claims, filing online is the quickest way to process unemployment claims. If you must call in, I want to stress again, please be patient with our customer service representatives. This is an incredibly stressful time for everyone, including them. These employees are working hard to get applications processed and benefits distributed. And they're doing all of this while also dealing with the same COVID-19 related stresses that have impacted all of us and our families. Finally, please remember that virtually overnight, the labor customer service representatives went from an historically low unemployment period, which had lasted for well over a year, to the highest call volumes we have ever seen, higher than even during the height of the Great Recession. So now more than ever, we must be kind, we must support one another, and as I've said before, and I'll say it again, together we'll get through this. And with that, I'll take some press questions.
Governor, I've been in touch with the Department of Labor. I watched their Facebook Live this morning. There's quite a bit of frustration. You can see in the public comments. One woman called back 300 times in one day, hanging up and calling back. Can you give
That's why we have 877,000 calls.
Right. Can you give us more specifics in terms of how you're triaging? I mean, I think the staff now has been doubled to 40, the call center staff, but how many people are you sending in from other agencies, and when will they have to be trained, as I understand, too?
They do have to be trained. We already have a few coming in from other agencies, often on a voluntary basis. I know we have one from Department of Revenue who used to work in labor, and so she has gone back over to labor and is working more than full-time there now. And I believe that we have reached down into the Department of Agriculture. There are some employees there. I think I heard the number was 100 of them will be eligible to go on over to labor and give them a hand. What we're working on right now is getting people set up so that they can work from home. They can do these kinds of things from home because we obviously have the same social distancing issues in our state buildings as people do in their private businesses. So I was over at Department of Labor yesterday, and the IT folks over there are working hard to get each of those laptops or desktops set up with the appropriate equipment, software they need. Yeah. Sorry.
Have you encountered, got reports of confusion about what is an essential business? I presume there is some confusion, but if you could help with quantifying that a little bit and advice for what people can do.
Yeah, we did establish the Kansas Essential Function Framework, which really outlines what is an essential business. And we categorize it so that we did this when the locals were starting to impose their own stay-at-home orders. And we did this to provide some consistency across the state. So businesses, whether they were in Lawrence or they're in Liberal, would know what it was, as would the local officials. So we got that established. Obviously that now has come out through the executive order. And are we getting calls? Yes, absolutely, we're getting calls. We've got a website set up, and that one is governor.kansas.gov/KEFF, Kansas Essential Function Framework. And there is a Q&A there so that the frequently asked questions are there, but there's also a way for the public to ask questions of us there. And we've got a group meeting this afternoon, as a matter of fact, to go through those questions, find out what they look like, and get answers back to those folks in particular, and then update the frequently asked questions so that we'll be answering those online.
Letters of non-compliance or anything, any enforcement action been taken by state or county people in regards to this?
I have not heard of any needing to be taken.
But Governor, will you hesitate to take that such action if you're going to go to the lengths of imposing the stay at home? It only works if people abide by it. So what lengths are you prepared to go to make sure that people do?
Well, I think one thing we have seen across Kansas is Kansans behaving themselves. And I was just talking with my Secretary of Wildlife and Parks yesterday, and he said, they were observing folks around the fishing lake, and that, ordinarily when somebody catches a fish, everybody flocks to that particular area. He said they're not doing that. They're keeping their distance, and they're taking turns going to the hot spot. So I think folks are just doing that. If we find incidents of that and it's blatant, and there are ways local law enforcement can go in. I think they've done that in Kansas City, Missouri, when a bunch of pickleball players were out on the court, too many of them in one place. So we have the capability of doing that if we need to do that, but so far I don't believe we've had to do it.
Governor, with severe weather starting to become an issue, a lot of these places have community bunkers that they go to for tornadoes, and they're concerned that there's just no way to be 6 feet from people. Would you recommend that they still use those community shelters, or what would you recommend they do?
That's a really good question, and one I'm going to take back to the team and come up with recommendations for that.
Have you thought about maybe contracting with a professional call center to help triage some of these calls into labor, rather than just bringing more state employees to bear?
I think we do have an arrangement right now with Amazon, so that there are some of the questions that are less technical are being routed through that. And then right now, because you do require training, not anybody can just pick up the phone and answer the questions. So the ones that need to go to labor will continue to go to labor.
Governor, can you give us any update on what Kitty and she talked about yesterday in terms of a church gathering? They were supposed to release the details of that, but did not, as far as I know. And then this Coffee County skilled nursing facility, which maybe about 20 people tested positive in it. So,
I think it was 8, but...
One of our competitors, the Kansas City Star, says it's like 18.
Okay.
So anyway, so do you have any additional details about that, and any comment about that clustering that results in maybe a more rapid spread of this?
Well, I think there has been some confusion about the church exemption that was provided in the executive order, and we will be clarifying that to be much clearer about what that means. And then I think there are a few other areas, outdoor activity, I think needs some clarification. So that's the other thing. In fact, I just got off the phone with all of our local units and our state emergency people, and asked them if there are other things that need clarity. Please get them to us as quickly as possible, so that when we issue a modification of the original executive order, that we can do it all at once rather than a piecemeal.
Governor, I asked you a couple of weeks ago, I'm talking to a lot of small business owners, particularly restaurants that are closed down, that cannot submit their sales tax receipts to the state. They just don't have the money to do it. And the one I talked to just this morning said he still hasn't been able to get an answer from the Revenue Department about whether or not, they're going to pursue him, or whether or not he's got a grace period. I mean, do you know anything about that?
We haven't talked specifically about sales tax receipts. This is actually the first I'm hearing about it, but we will talk with Department of Revenue. We don't want to impose any punishment on folks who are already suffering enough. So we'll figure out some way to deal with that.
What are your budget people telling you about? There have been some reports that the GDP could drop by 30% in the quarter. What are you hearing, because consensus revenue estimates are coming up, what are you hearing about potential effect on the state from what's happening right now?
Well, as you said, the consensus revenue group will be getting together later in April and crunching all of those numbers. The only numbers that we have right now are sort of our end of March, and there was not much impact during the actual month of March. We just about, if didn't meet the consensus revenue estimates for March. But then that is always followed by, but it's not always going to be like that. We know we're going to be taking a huge hit in our revenues. You know, just the fact that we extended the deadline for income tax filing to July 15th will be a huge hit on our bottom line. And, you know, sales tax, we really don't know yet. There, in some ways, there have been a lot more commodities purchased, so we'll have to see how that works out.
Governor, are there any differences between guidelines for essential business when it comes to a statewide order versus a specific county order? A lot of people are asking about golf courses and child care facilities.
Yeah, the statewide stay-home order supersedes all the locals. So, and we know that that's created some confusion and some angst in local areas. So we're working with our locals, and that's part of what we'll be putting out to clarify what the rules are.
Our state employees, you know, the legislature is out until April 27th, but that's even being kind of looked at as maybe too soon. Do you plan on extending state employees coming back and the legislature, or is that still up in the air?
Everything is, you know, on a day-by-day basis, hour-by-hour basis, but yeah, we are having conversations with the Department of Administration in how to deal with this. I don't anticipate that we're going to be able to flip the switch and open up all the doors of state offices next week, which is when, you know, the 2-week administrative leave would end. So we're working out the details on that. Each of our agencies, in particularly, working out what can happen with their employees, and then overall just a policy for that. You know, the legislature, I think that's really up to the legislature to have that conversation, but I'm confident that they'll do the healthy thing.
Governor, do you think the Department of Administration has begun planning for, as a contingency, furloughing state workers? We get closer to July 1 and so forth.
No, we're not having those conversations at all.
You, with the legislature kind of looking over your shoulder whenever you issue an executive order, this one that you're issuing today, waiving some of the state requirements vis-a-vis unemployment insurance, have you consulted with them on that one?
I'm sorry, consulted whom?
The legislative leadership on that executive order.
Yes, I have regular conversations with legislative leadership, and as do my staff, so we've got regular two-way communication
As far as you
going
know,
on.
you're okay with what you're doing today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll find out in 3 days, right? They'll tell me for sure, but I can't imagine that this would be a problem. You know, remember, these are their constituents too.
How's the working relationship with the Republican and Democratic leaders of the legislature that you've talked to?
Yeah, we are in pretty regular communication with them, and you know they did come back over the weekend to review the executive order, and they gave it a thumbs up. So I think we're working pretty well together.
Have you been learning anything from the whatever conference calls you have with the White House, the president, whatever his response team? Have you been learning anything about how to handle this situation?
You know, there's conversations going back and forth. Part of that call with the White House are various governors, almost all 50, 55 governors, if you count the territories, are on those calls. And so there is a very robust, lengthy back and forth conversation. So yeah, we'll have, you know, the governor from Michigan asking this question or that question, or somebody else talking about the way they're doing it. But probably even more useful is the call that we have with the National Governors Association, where there's really a lot of dialogue between the governors and questions and answers and those kinds of things. It's, you know, there really only are, you know, 49 others of us around the state who are in the same boat. So we've got a really good support group going on.
The New York Times put out a column where the president has told the vice president, you know, not to respond to the governor in Washington and the governor in Michigan because they haven't said nice things about him. And so, have you noticed any favoritism in how states are being treated in terms of supplies and response relative to how the governor, relative to any public statements any governor might have made about the president?
I know that that's been reported, and, you know, I really don't have enough information to confirm or.
He's not holding out on you.
You know, all of the states are suffering from a severe shortage of particularly personal protective equipment. That is absolutely number one. I know that it's been said that, you know, we've got all of these tests out there and, you know, there's no test shortage. That's not true. All the states are experiencing a test shortage. Hopefully there will be some remedy shortly. We know that Abbott Labs had their test approved, but, you know, they're just gearing up the production of those tests. We won't see them for a while. So, no, every state is, you know, obviously it's all a matter of magnitude. You know, for New York, you know, they need 30,000 ventilators. We don't, but we have other needs that are just as pressing.
Governor Roxana from the Associated Press asked, a Sedgwick County commissioner seeking to temporarily close an abortion clinic in Wichita. Is the state taking any action either to shutter or protect abortion clinics during the outbreak?
No, I think the women's reproductive centers are considered a healthcare facility and therefore essential.
Turkey hunting season starts tomorrow, and I talked with the Wildlife and Parks Department. They said Kansas can still go hunting as normal, but I wanted to ask you, is that considered essential? Will somebody be pulled over and said to go home if they try and go hunting?
No, we wouldn't consider it an essential service. But, you know, if somebody goes out turkey hunting and they're not in a group of more than 10 and they're socially distanced, that's perfectly, in fact, we encourage outdoor activity. And part of the clarification that we'll have on the EO is making sure that people understand exactly when we say go outside, what we mean by that. So, yeah, I do think, though, that Wildlife and Parks is actually refunding, you know, a lot of turkey licenses that were sold because people, a lot of them come in from out of state. That won't happen. And obviously those lodges that they might stay in won't be open.
Kind of an off-beat question, Governor, but, you know, I go home and try to take a walk with Deb every afternoon. And one thing I've noticed is that I mean, people are keeping their distance, but the streets are full of people out walking. And have you noticed that around Cedar Crest? Do you get out much? I mean, just there just seems to be kind of a social vibe going on where people are outside more in this.
Yeah, it's really fun actually to see that. You know, I was a recreation therapist in my old life, so, you know, I believe in the great outdoors and I believe in playing as very therapeutic. So I'm glad folks are out there. What I have seen, because, you know, I've got that big park in front of my house, and yeah, they are coming. It always looks, though, that like they're family groups or a couple of friends. You know, in fact, I went out walking the other day with a friend of mine. She's over here on the path, I'm over here on the path. And then when we'd come up on somebody, you know, somebody would make the wide arc. So it looks to me like people are doing what they need to do. You know, what I would like to say is, you know, social distancing works. You know, they're actually looking now, there are studies being done that are looking at, you know, the states that actually set up the stay-at-home and orders and put in the social distancing. We're really seeing the curve is bending quicker for us than it is for states that allowed that to continue. So we know it works. We know it can be awkward at times, but it's essential that people continue to maintain that social distance.
Governor KHE has talked about a peak of this later in April. What are the emergency preparedness people telling you about how that looks? Does KU Hospital in Kansas City get full? Some Western Kansas hospital essentially empty? What is that picture going to look like in a few weeks?
Well, it all depends upon how much, you know, Kansans obey the stay-home order and keep their social distance. If, you know, right now I think we've seen about a 40% reduction in motion, people, you know, going here, going there. If we can get that to 55%, then we will have enough ICU beds to handle even the peak. So it really, we're very dependent upon Kansans for helping us bend this curve and keep supplies plenty.
One more question? All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Governor.
Two timeline questions that I didn't think anybody else would care about. Help me, when does the revenue numbers come out, and when does unemployment